7 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. You can stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you everyone for coming. There were no visitors wishing to speak. I will mention a couple things. Jean, myself, and Tony had the privilege of attending a BOCES event for superintendents, board presidents, board vice presidents, where we got to Dr. Frazier, our former interim superintendent, has been named the Erie County School Board's director, and did a presentation about what his main goal is going to be, focused on advocacy for schools, and talked about, he made a presentation showing us a website, the NewYorkRuralSchools.org, and walked us through data and how we can use data with advocacy. And so it was a nice evening, nice to see Dr. Frazier. And then since our last meal, we had our building tours as well. Most of us were there. I think it was one of the main things we saw is some of the lighting being put in our, changing out and putting LED lighting in our gyms, and how much more efficient that is.
Painting.
Lots of painting. I'm trying to think if there wasn't. Oh, the Windermere Library, right, where we'll be having our meeting in October, right? First meeting in October, is it? To see the revamped library, so that'll be nice.
But just too, how hard they all work to rejuvenate our buildings over the summertime.
Yeah,
Our staff,
sure.
I mean, they're unsung heroes, really, in my eyes.
Yeah, there was a lot of work that you can see went on. The buildings were extremely clean and ready to go, so. We don't know, I don't think we had any other committee meetings, but
Well, I went to as the legislative liaison, went with Erie County Association of School Boards, Belinda Heckler, who's the government relations rep for NYSBA, Jane Brzezinski and Dr. Frazier from Erie County Association of School Boards, and Kathleen Shavetta from Lakeshore. We met with two of Representative Higgins' staffers, and the topics were basically education funding. We started with the discussion of Medicaid funding, and really it's centered around the fact that most people aren't even aware that Medicaid funds special education services and other things that involve education. They think it's, what you would typically think is Medicaid and Medicare, just because people lump those things together if you don't have intimate knowledge of it. How we could maybe get the word out about that. Education funding in general, specifically talk through where we are in New York with our tax caps, and how, if at the federal level they start cutting and we're still in the position we're in, with not being able to make it up on the state level the way they would expect us to be able to, and we talked through the fact that Amherst actually had a negative situation, and they were unaware that could actually happen. And admittedly, it was two of his staffers who were not directly connected to education. The woman who's in the direct education person for Representative Higgins was actually in Washington, D.C., and she's from the Buffalo area. She might actually even be from Amherst. I have to follow up. Her name was Emily. But I haven't talked to her specifically yet. But anyway, during the conversation, GEA also came up. There was a lot of back and forth about the committees that Representative Higgins is on now, and how difficult it is for him to necessarily influence based on what his focuses are right now, but that he is a sympathetic ear, and he is absolutely pro-education and against the cuts to education, and that we talked through ways that he could write letters or do other things. So they were definitely, you could see their wheels turning and trying to think about, okay, the way to affect this is this way, and thinking through while we were talking through what the issues were, how they could make change happen within the framework of, a politician's life. They had also had 2 other meetings before I joined the team, one with Representative Collins and one with Representative Slaughter. And Representative Collins is a Republican and wants to take government out of everything, and really did not give them as much time as we were given at Representative Higgins' office. And apparently his tagline was, everything's going to be fine, everything's going to be fine. And really, didn't want to discuss it much more than that. Although he left him in the door, so obviously he was not, closing the door
That was a meeting
to.
you weren't at?
Correct. Correct. That was before I joined. And Representative Slaughter apparently had some comments about that there are some serious cuts that are looming related to the sequestration. And like I said, unfortunately I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't have the specifics of how that conversation went, but I felt like we definitely had a useful conversation, but it's in an arena that has a lot of moving parts, and so you never actually know. You can't be there on the floor and have the conversations, and so who knows? But we said what we could say, and I'm glad we did it.
Thanks for being part of that.
What?
Thanks for being part of that.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's an interesting process.
One other thing before I forget, next Monday, just so the board's aware, I'm going to be signing off on the bonding of the Windermere project. The final, we'll be bonding, putting our bands to bond, so just so everybody's aware, I'll be signing off on that Monday morning, so.
Should we get like a cake and balloons or anything?
It's kind of nerve, when you're signing off on millions of dollars of borrowings. It's worse than signing your mortgage for your house, all the documents you have to sign, so. As I'm sure you remember, Paul. And I think that's it, so turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. Dr. Schoenfeld is going to join me to talk about what we believe is a very positive and successful opening to the school year, with today culminating with today being the first day back for all the students. As you could imagine, there's a significant amount of planning that goes into the summer months, not only to wrap up the previous school year, but then get prepared for today, really the opening of the new school year with students. And there's several things we do throughout the summer that we wanted to highlight for you in preparation. And then we have at the end a little video treat that we'd like to debut at today's meeting. So the first one, back in the third week of July, our administrative team meets every year the third week of July for what we call the administrative retreat. This year our focus was on culturally responsive leadership practices, and we had 2 days worth of reflection and edification as it relates to what does it mean to be a culturally responsive educator, especially in today's world, not only in working with diverse populations here in Amherst, but with what's going on globally and nationally. And we had wonderful presentations led by Jessica O'Hearn, our Assistant Director of Special Education, and our culturally responsive teaching team of Mrs. Sue Paul Saladino, Grace Malin, and Maria Otto. And they facilitated what I think was 2 very positive days. And again, the point was around reflection and perspective, and what does it basically mean to be a culturally responsive educator. The third day, July 20th, focused on a book study, which you can see an image of the book that we selected this year, called The Power of Positive Leadership by author John Gordon. And through the third day, Dr. Schoenfeld, myself, and Mr. Belisle facilitated some team building activities, ways to implement positive leadership in the building. We analyzed the positive leadership traits that are outlined in the book, and then we actually brought it home and did some action planning for how we were going to implement them, not only in the beginning days of school, as you'll see threaded throughout our presentation, but also throughout the year and moving forward. So that kind of set the stage for where we were as an administrative cabinet. The next main event that occurred in the summer was the athletic kickoff. And this is something that Dr. Ilg does to not only provide information to the parents about the athletic event and the upcoming seasons, communicate expectations, talk about some logistic things. He has also added to his athletic kickoff a keynote speaker and a theme. So this year his theme was a combination of the positive leadership that we talked about at our retreat, but he also read a book that was recommended by author John Gordon in the book that we read as a cabinet, called Grit by Angela Duckworth. And he had kind of outlined for all of our athletes and parents that grit is the number one predictor and factor of success, because your ability to persevere through difficult times and approach your work, whatever it is, with passion is oftentimes more important than just talent or intelligence alone. So he's using that not only with the leadership training he does with our captains club, but he's also using it with his training with the coaches and when he addresses the teams throughout all the seasons. And you can see there he has 5 main pieces that he pulled from the book as to that he's using for that training. The night also featured a distinguished alum by the name of Mr. Mark Rubin. He is a graduate of Amherst High School. He went on to play football at Penn State, and beyond that, he spent a little bit of time in the NFL with the St. Louis Rams, but now he continues to lead a healthy lifestyle, and he's actually been featured on the cover of Men's Health magazine as, I think 5 years in a row, he's been named the fittest man on Wall Street. So his presentation talked about goal setting, hard work, teamwork, but most importantly, one of the messages he brought forth was life after athletics. How are you going to, when organized sports are done, how are you going to continue to lead a healthy lifestyle and take some of the things you learned in high school or college athletics and translate them into your life as a professional and continue with a healthy lifestyle. So that really was the second main event we had in the summer leading up and preparing for today, leading to our new teacher orientation.
One of the impressive parts of Amherst is that we do devote the time and attention to our new teachers, and every year we spend a full week with our new teachers, with, I'll say, our experienced teachers that are a cohesive team that have worked together over time. We fold in some technology and some opportunities for them to hit the ground running. We hire the best here in Amherst, but we also support them coming into the school year. A couple of the focus points, you've already heard about the thoughtful classroom framework that we're using for teachers and for administrators. That framework is broken down into the episodes, the cornerstones first, then the dimensions and episodes in the middle, and then the professional practice. So we take a lot of time, about an hour or two per dimension, and each teacher that's part of the team, you saw those pictures up there. I worked on dimension 2, which was relationships and how key that is to being a successful educator. So we took the time to go through all of those. Some interwoven skills are essential elements of instruction, which is really the foundation of our teachers and how we're working with them to be sound in the classroom with practice. So those are a couple things that came up. One of the most important things, too, that we do with our new teachers, as this learning goes on over the first couple of days, we also talk to them about, you'll do a demonstration lesson, a mini lesson, so they get a little nervous about that at first, but on that last day, they'll actually do a pre-conference with one of the teachers, and then they'll do their presentation with a small group, and then they will have a post-conference. it prepares them to go into the classroom, and they'll be observed a multitude of times, and we want to make sure they're feeling comfortable about the process, and that, again, they understand how the process is to be conducted. We were also able to, on the first day, we had the solar eclipse, so that was interesting, part of the relationships. We had to meet in groups, and we said, why don't we meet outside and share the information we were going to share, so we were able to do that. As teachers, some of them were really excited because they thought they were going to be stuck in a room and not be able to experience it, but we were able to blend that and take it as a teachable moment.
So one of the things that has been a concern over the last several years, really since 2012, with the APPR initiative from the state, has been the ability for administrators to provide formative development for teachers. Because we now, as the administrative observers, are required to put a score on the evaluation. That score carries some weight relative to people's standing, and as a result, it takes away some of our ability to provide formative development and coaching because we're seen as the summative evaluator. So we have a strong history in this district with our mentor program of training expert mentor teachers in the clinical supervision of instruction so they can provide that formative development with our teachers in a safe environment, in a coaching environment. And one of the things that we're really proud of is by the end of the new teacher orientation, before any of our new teachers actually step foot in a classroom in front of new teachers, they've had the opportunity to teach a lesson and receive feedback from one of our expert mentor teachers before they ever approach day one, which is today with kids in the classroom. That's really something very unique about our new teacher orientation.
I'll give a brief overview. I can't encapsulate all of it, but each school over the first 3 opening days, teachers came back to school on the 29th of August, and then we had our district meeting on the 30th in the morning, and then on the 31st. So in those 3 days, our faculty were here. I'll just highlight some of the main things that happened at each school. There were some similarities, and I think you would respect this because of all the time and effort and support you've given the strategic plan. At each of the sites, during their faculty meeting or a portion of that, the first 3 days, they spent about 2 hours looking at, I'll say, the close to final draft of their action steps to carry out year 1 of our 5-year strategic plan. So you'll notice in the back of the room here, we have an easel. In each of the buildings during those days, they had about 8 of those around. And it has our priorities, our goals, our initiatives, action steps, and then some of the tasks. The whole staff was included in this. They wanted to know, take a look at this, write down some notes. How can you enhance that? How can we make changes to this to enhance the strategic plan that we'll set forth starting in October? So the committee worked over the summer, and then these drafts, and we did this literally, each one of these posters was created by the principals, aligned. Donna Freimeyer helped. So we had the branding, but we also had a consistent pattern in each of the schools. So there was opportunity to get reflection from the staff, to have an inclusive plan moving forward, and they were able to, again, give their feedback. You'll see in the picture up here, there's some little stickies up on the wall there. These activities, they might be called museum walks or carousel activities, that around the room, they moved around, and you'll see a couple different pictures, and they gave their thoughts. Okay, after 5-6 minutes, let's go on to the next one. Look at this, what are your thoughts? And after all that information is gathered, in this month, their team will come together, they'll take all that feedback, and then they'll work on, okay, what's our final plan moving forward, which will be shared with you.
And one of the points that I'd like to point out about that, because this really was Dr. Schoenfeld's doing, for a strategic plan to be successful, you need buy-in amongst all the stakeholders. We did a nice job of that along the way in developing the plan, with 42 people on the Planning Council representing all walks of life within our district. Dr. Schoenfeld quickly identified if we were going to translate those action steps to building action plans, we needed to follow a similar process that the Planning Council followed in order to get the buy-in at the building level by all of the teachers and staff that are working the building. So we mirrored a process that we followed with the planning council at the end when we were finalizing the action steps with all of the teachers across the district by using these posters and the gallery walk. So it was really nice to see the 7 initiatives that were selected for this school year as our focus to go to the building action teams and individual tasks to be identified. And then from those individual tasks, that building action teams brought them back to the masses to get feedback. And now they're going back as a building action team and finalizing the plan, which all of you will get a chance to see early next month once they're finalized and implementation begins. So kudos to Dr. Schoenfeld for having the vision to know that we needed the same buy-in that we got from the district level at the building levels.
Windermere did something creative that makes a lot of sense. They knew their building strategic action plan would be looking at various items throughout the year in their action steps. What they decided to do is they called it a vertical family. So they would have these different groups of teachers, and you might have a kindergarten teacher, a first grade, all the way through 5th grade, an AIS teacher involved. So that group would have different perspectives, different experiences. It might, if you just had a group of board members, you might all think the same way, but if you had a teacher, you had a custodial worker, a clerical, all in a group, you're going to have different thoughts, and that divergent thought. It was a good way that they've approached some of this work already, so they've started that. So they think that's a good approach, and I agree, we want those different abilities and different thoughts and experiences. Some other work that happened at Windermere, they did some co-teaching for powerful instruction. The co-teaching model is when you'll have a gen ed teacher and either an E&L teacher or a special ed teacher in the classroom. They had someone from BOCES to come to work, which sometimes special ed, you don't always have professional development, but this was structured. Mr. D'Angelo helped to get that situated, and it was positive. One thing that will be repeated with the other elementary was our math common language. We had a handful of people that was part of our math leadership work this summer, and we worked 2 days looking closely at a couple things. One of them was having like a whole school buy-in and having agreement about certain things you teach in math. One of them was common language, that if you're going to be teaching, just say subtraction, you should be using certain terminology throughout as you move along. The other thing that came up, besides alignment in what you say and how you say it and being very explicit about your words, there were 13 rules expressed at the elementary level. When you teach mathematics, you might say, well, to a young child, you might just say, there's just positive numbers, and that's not the case. So there were rules that expire that when we're teaching them, we want to be very thoughtful that when situations come up like that you're explaining it, and you might explain this is what we're doing now. When you get further along, it will be this, because students start to get a framework and a thinking of one way, which makes us have to take 2 steps backwards. So that we actually did a breakdown, and about half of these rules, teachers were like, yep, we do that. We probably shouldn't do that. So four of our teachers, 2 at Smallwood and 2 at Windermere, ended up taking about an hour of time to talk about our summer work, talk about the math language, and then we'll continue to work on that, but explicitly talk about these 13 rules that expire to make sure that we're focused and moving forward. We do things at a very high level here, and that's where we're at. We're looking more at the vertical, and that's really a great thing that we're at that point that we're able to do that. One thing that showed positive results at Windermere too, they blended on the 31st, they had a supply drop-off later in the day around 4 o'clock that extended to about 6 o'clock. They also had that as an open house. And they said teachers' feedback was we had more parents involved and more parents that showed up because they were coming in to get their kids situated, but they also were able to meet the teachers, understand what's happening, and that was a positive new approach that they tried this year. As for Smallwood, there's things that happened. The strategic plan, very similar, so I already talked about that. At Smallwood in the gymnasium, they set up all the posters, they did a carousel activity, very inclusive, and Mr. Lewis and Mr. Crozier did a great job facilitating and working with people. People that were on their committee over the summer that helped work on the plan, they were standing at each poster too, and they were able to talk and give you more understanding if there were questions, and also to take notes and help to facilitate that. The math common language, 13 rules also occurred there. And we've been working with Dr. Lynn Shanahan. We did primarily at Windermere, and then we started to use Dr. Shanahan. She's from UB. Fabulous job, very knowledgeable and practical and pragmatic. They talked about the balanced approach to literacy so that there's a common understanding amongst all teachers. We worked on balanced literacy a while ago, and with turnover at Smallwood, there was about 35% of the teachers that might not have had that experience. So we've reintegrated her into that learning environment there. She's still working with Windermere, and we've extended her work to the middle school. Dr. Meichenbaum works at Summit. He worked with Smallwood last year, looking at different behavioral needs and some of those things. This year, the focus was on how to support students with attention difficulties. So as an educator, you see that, and there's different strategies and practices. He explains a lot of things that work. He works with some of the more challenging situations, I'll say, in Western New York. But he has a great way about himself, very knowledgeable, very pragmatic as well. So although you might think Smallwood, typically doesn't have behavior issues or anything, which some people think, oh, Amherst schools. No, they don't necessarily. There are ways they're noticing changes just over time that they're trying to address, ways of proactively, instead of just having rules, but having policies that work and carry out the same end game. So that's been a positive.
When I talked to Mike Baum a couple of years ago, he said he had some grant money, and he
Yeah.
was very interested in coming to the schools, and I'm sure that that's what this is about. Is there going to be an effort to reach out to have him come to all the schools in the district?
His came out of teachers met with the principal last summer, and they talked about that being one of the needs, that there's been some changes and a desire to work with, again, those sort of policies and procedures. So it was more of a need that was coming from the staff at that point. If it folds into strategic planning and what we're doing, we can expand that. We haven't done that yet, but it's a good point. We're trying to do a lot of things.
Well, the attention difficulties don't end at 5th grade.
Yeah,
No.
some of his areas of expertise are around working with students, particularly on the spectrum. And his work actually started in the middle school a couple years ago. We have a long-standing relationship with him. Our previous director of special education, before Mr. Belisle, so just 2 directors ago, actually had a connection with him when he worked at Canisius College, and the district started working with him around that time. The middle school, several years ago, had him do professional development around working with kids that are on the spectrum, and that work was well received. So it translated to a specific need that Smallwood has in focusing on school-wide approach to, I guess you would call them rules and consequences and how you react to them. So they were getting ready to launch an initiative this year. I forget the acronym, it might be PAWS, where they're going to be teaching the same rules to all the kids very explicitly in the beginning of the school year, and they're actually going to model them. So they take them into the cafeteria. It's based on the work of PBIS, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, which is an initiative that Smallwood is specific to them. His work has been in other areas of the district previously. It's not being grant funded at this point, but certainly there's opportunities for it to grow.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
But he's well respected within our school community, which isn't always easy to accomplish with an outside consultant because they don't necessarily know the people don't know them. But Dr. Shanahan and Dr. Meichenbaum are 2 well-respected folks that we have a history with that are always well received.
I had a specific conversation with him about ADHD and what he would be willing to do.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we'll talk to him more and see the needs.
Yeah, ask him about that conversation and see where it left off, or touch base with you too as well.
And we were talking about positive and positive leadership. Something that they started last year was a hard hat for going above and beyond, that teachers would nominate their colleagues or anyone in the building. And they changed it this year to positive, meaning PAWS, impact. So this year they'll be recognizing teachers within their learning community or staff people that go above and beyond to do positive things within their classroom. At faculty meetings, they take about 5 or 10 minutes. They read out these different nominations, I'll say, and then they randomly pull a couple. So that was something that I thought was very meaningful. At the middle school, this shows you more of the carousel of the strategic planning, where to the left you see a set of posters, and in the far back corner there's a set in the cafeteria of the middle school as part of that carousel. They moved around to look at each of the initiatives and give their feedback. Oftentimes when people look at strategic planning, this takes time to go through, to think, so some people are wanting to say, oh yeah, let's just move ahead. But we're taking the time to gain, the input from people and really put a cohesive plan that's attainable together. The other couple things I want to highlight with the middle school, the middle school and the high school both took a full half day to focus on the positive relationships and what we started at the administrative retreat. They really examined the concepts from the book, Power of Positive Leadership, and started to consider the instructional application of that. And if these sort of things that we learned and we experienced through the activities that we did, how can I translate that into the classroom and build a place where students feel accepted and that sense of belonging and the building of relationships and that whole sort of side. So there were a couple activities they did, and hopefully you'll get to do some of these, but one example was the 3 H's, where small teams got together, and we did this as administrators, that you talk about your hero in your life, a hardship you may have been, and a highlight of your life. So about 4 of you would go off and you would share that, and you might shed a tear and you might laugh and you might give words of encouragement, but you would get to know those people better. So as a family, and they wanted to take this picture, they wanted to take a picture of the middle school family, but that was one activity that Mr. Griesmer, Mr. Crombie said, we didn't just put the 6th grade team together, we took a 6th grade teacher, sort of like the vertical concept, and took a speech teacher and took someone from the 8th grade in social studies, and they mixed different people so that we could be more cohesive and understanding of one another. And the feedback was very good. The one other thing we did at the middle level and also at the high school was department-based data analysis, that they were looking closer at the data that just came out and also some goal setting for the school year. The one thing all the departments were asked to do, there's a documentation sheet that went to reflect how can you do your best work, how can you be supported on that, what gets in the way of your work. But then it proceeded to talk about your goals. And then lastly, gearing up for November 7th, which we have a professional development day, the superintendent's conference day, a full day with the staff, we asked, what are the types of things you see as being, helpful to you? The best form of staff development is asking people what they want and give it to them, and then ask them again. So we did already start that in motion through this documentation. That are you willing to do something that you might share with colleagues? Is there somebody that you would want to hear about or something you'd want to learn about? So we've started that process. At the high school, again, the picture you see there is the work that happened on July 25th, where the initial group got together at the high school over at Damon College, and that's where they started to work on their strategic plan. But they followed up on superintendent's conference day at this opening day to flesh those out just like they did at the other schools. They also did that department-based learning that I expressed, that they were looking at goal setting. One in particular, too, that I think is something we're going to dive into a little deeper. We work with Mike Kumrau. He works through BOCES. He helped with a data dashboard for our science department. So the teachers were able to go in and look at these strands, because science has been very consistent over time in the same types of assessments, that he set up an Excel sheet that you can go in and literally look at each question and look at each, it slices it many ways, and it's very complicated. However, he did a great job, and Dr. Weber, of bringing this data in this format, which we want to try to do in other places. So it was sort of a pilot, but it was well received, and something we'll definitely continue to work on and expand. At the high school, I also mentioned, they also worked on the relationships and the tie-in to positive leadership. Three of the main things they wanted to take out of the day was, leaders, the positivity and the optimism. One thing that's in the book is how do you fight off negativity when that comes up too. So they had some conversations about how can we be more positive. We as administrators also learned of how can you turn situations around and not buy into certain things, so you look more at the positives.
And two of the major themes that emerged in the book, there was about 9 of them that emerged, and as an administrative cabinet in July, we kind of looked at the 9 and we prioritized them as a group, and 2 that emerged that we did some action planning around were the relationship building and communication. So it was nice to see that our administrators took that work, took those action plans from the 3rd week of July, and we already see evidence of them implementing them in the first days of school with staff.
And this last picture was, they did an activity too about working as a team and building, literally constructing something with a certain amount of resources and structures. So again, it might be seen as an activity, but it was also one of those team building, which in a lot of this work, we also want to be cohesive and working as one.
So from our perspective, all of this work is leading up to, the opening days with faculty and staff and kids. We're trying to set a tone throughout the summer, trying to thread it through vertically to ensure that, what we're doing is cohesive and makes sense. So on August 30th, we had everybody from the district in the middle school auditorium. President Steinle had the opportunity to address all of the faculty and staff, delivered a great message that talked about the strategic plan and the initiatives that are forthcoming, which was then dovetailed by the AEA President Davis's address, which again talked about the strategic plan and some new ideas that are going to be forthcoming. Of course, it was a theme that emerged within my words, and then it culminated in an opening day video produced by Dr. Schoenfeld that was centered around the theme of the children's book in the upper left-hand corner, What Do You Do with an Idea? So the whole opening days with faculty and staff are around implementing the strategic plan, positive leadership, taking ideas, growing them into fruition ultimately, so that everything we're doing centers around improving student outcomes and achievement. One thing that started as an idea a couple years ago, I was still in my previous role, Dr. Schoenfeld's role as the assistant superintendent, was this idea that we wanted to, it actually came about through a board goal as well. We wanted to improve, our public image, particularly through our website. So some of you may recall we had a website committee which led to the new logo that we have and the redesigned website that we were able to launch 2 summers ago. And along those lines, we often get people that are looking at our area from out of town or from other parts of even the region, and they're always looking on our website for, to know more about our schools. In particular, our high school is the one that we get the most inquiries about. Even folks that are in our elementary and middle schools oftentimes find that they're in a situation where they want to know more about our high school compared to other alternatives. So one of the ideas that we had was to create a public relations video of sorts that could be used on our website, distributed through social media. We didn't want it to be amateur in nature. We wanted it to be professional. So we were able to access the expertise of some faculty and staff and alumni. So the first person we went to was Mr. Paul Hare, who's a high school math teacher. He also does some work with WGRZ in the traffic reports, so he has access to resources and equipment and some knowledge relative to how you produce a professional looking video. And then the second person we were able to tap into is an alum by the name of Tom Donahue, who was actually in the Buffalo Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and he was able to provide the voiceover in the video that I'm very proud to debut here at this board meeting, which will also then, from after tonight, begin the process of distributing this through our social media and our websites. But we debuted it as part of the opening day video, and tonight is the first time that we're going to play it for public consumption.
Tradition, pride, achievement. This is Amherst Central High School, a destination school in the heart of Western New York, with a strong academic tradition of excellence dating back to 1930. At Amherst, we strive to deliver the most well-rounded education possible, with a full range of honors and advanced placement courses, strong certificate programs of study in business, computers, technology, food service, music, and fine arts. 29 varsity sports for males and females. A vocal and instrumental music program involving nearly half of the student body. And countless student clubs and organizations. And this is just the beginning of the list.
One of the best things that Amherst High School offers our students is a rigorous academic schedule. Our students have their choice of a number of different AP classes that allow them to earn college credit while they're still here with us in the building. These credits can go with them to college and allow our students then to pick up double majors, concentrations, or even to pursue diverse internship experiences.
In the past, I've taken like 5 APs, I believe. But that's just a few of them. We have so many here. This year, I'm actually in a medical internship at Millard Fillmore Hospital. So the other day, I was in the OR. I saw a biopsy, so I'm seeing all kinds of interesting things that are really going to help me in my future.
The athletic program here at Amherst takes pride in the fact that they have experienced and knowledgeable coaches.
I have learned to be a leader on the basketball team, and this has helped me grow on and off the court.
I started my athletic career here at Amherst and was able to take the foundation that I learned here into college to find great success.
Amherst High School has so many opportunities to get involved in extracurricular activities. If there's not a club here that fits your interest, you can start one. For example, I'm the advisor to our Quiz Bowl team, which competes in local leagues and national tournaments.
Here at Amherst High School, we offer a myriad of different activities for our music students in the high school. In the instrumental department, there are 2 curricular bands, as well as a jazz ensemble. In the orchestral department, we have 2 curricular orchestras, plus Sinfonio. And in the vocal department, 2 curricular choirs, as well as the Sweet 16s and varsity singers that do contemporary a cappella music, as well as the operetta, our annual musical production.
Before I came to Amherst, I wasn't really sure of who I was as a person, and I think that the Amherst music program really helped me discover who I am and how to express myself with other people who enjoy doing what I love.
Yeah, I think that's true for most of the students in the music program, and there's a lot of them. We have a very large music program, and we're very lucky we have a pretty incredible music department.
Amherst is a special place. One of the greatest strengths of our school environment is our sense of community and belonging. Being a Tiger means being a part of a family of students, teachers, coaches, mentors, parents, administrators, alumni, and more.
I like how it's like a community, and my teachers are always very supportive and always out there to help me whenever I need help in school.
Through athletics, the feeling of family and knowing somebody has your back is the greatest feeling ever.
Something unique about Amherst High School is the voice that students have in the building. This year, as an extension of my Fulbright Fellowship to the Netherlands, Superintendent Pinella and I worked to implement the Superintendent Student Council, which is a group of very diverse students who meet with our superintendent and other administrators to discuss school culture and the daily life of our school.
Our Amherst Alumni Association is a testament of the Amherst community. Individuals volunteer unselfishly, raising funds to provide grants to teachers and scholarships for students. A tremendous asset to the Amherst Central School District is our instructional staff and administration, who continually hone in on professional practice, holding high expectations for students and staff alike. Additionally, we are on the cutting edge of technology, truly delivering a 21st century educational experience.
Now every single classroom has their own set of Chromebooks. It really enhances the learning experience for us.
The Amherst Central School District has a positive trajectory. We are adapting to our changing world.
There's no place that I would imagine ever wanting to work other than here at Amherst, so that way I can help the students find success in anything they want to do in their futures.
We have a primary focus of educating the whole child, providing a rich learning experience, pre-K through 12th grade. Tradition, pride, and achievement. That makes Amherst Central High School a true gem of Western New York.
So, yeah, that will begin the process as early as tomorrow for disseminating that through the web, social media, etc. I think it speaks for itself, so I wouldn't want to say anything just to overshadow it. I'll just keep moving here. As you can imagine, all of that leads up to today, which is the first day with kids. As central office leaders, Dr. Schoenfeld and I, along with Mr. Belisle and Mrs. Bazinski, are looking to, set the tone and the expectation within the district. And then you can see that our administrative team is on board and the communication is consistent. One of the things that I said in my opening day words with the faculty and staff was that we want to make sure that we're all rowing, our oars are all rowing in the same direction. So everything we do is focused and targeted and designed to help improve student outcomes at all levels. So we think we are off to a wonderful start of the school year. Today we had a very successful opening in each of the buildings, and I would say, from the last few years that I've been back to the district as the assistant superintendent and now in this capacity, every opening day, you have some transportation delays. Some of them are, that Kodak moment at the bus stop in the morning. Some of them are routing and getting adjusted to that. The last report I got today was that we had one bus arrive to the middle school to pick up kids that was late, and it got here about 4:27, which is the earliest that we've ever had a bus arrive late on opening day. So it was very positive news and a very successful opening. So I guess if there's any questions, we can hopefully answer them.
Well, I'd like to add, I had the privilege of obviously speaking to on opening day for the teachers. And I had stayed around. This is the second year in a row I've been able to speak, and I stayed around and watched the whole morning presentation. These Mr. Piniella and Dr. Schoenfeld do a fantastic job. I mean, the leaving after watching their opening day video both years, you from an outsider's perspective, not being a teacher, I felt inspired, excited for the district, and I will just say kudos to both of you. You did a fantastic job, and I think the teachers, from those that I spoke with after him leaving, there was a sense of excitement, and this video was fantastic that was put together. So I just wanted to say you guys did a fantastic job, and from an outsider's perspective.
And thank you for being part of it. It helps to see everybody aligned all the way from the Board of Ed through central office and down to the buildings. So it means a lot. Thank you for being there.
And just by coincidence, our speech is aligned. I'd say,
And Brian Davis is good too.
Right, all three of us, it just by coincidence had a very similar message.
All the oars are rowing in the same direction, right?
Yeah.
That's good news.
So I know, tonight's the first day of school for many of our families, and we certainly wanted to have a report out in the superintendent's report, but we wanted to also keep the meeting to a reasonable length so we can all get home and talk to our kids about how the first day of school went in our own houses. So if that's it, that's the end of the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, then we'll need a motion for new business.
I'll make a motion. I make a motion to approve items F1 through F1A through F2, A through Z, and 3D.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving new business items F1, A through F, 2, A through Z, and 3D, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Ms. Costello, do we have any follow-up action items? I don't believe.
I do not.
Okay. And we do not have any executive session tonight, so.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We'll need a second. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody, for coming.